Welcome to the Startups Without Borders podcast live edition in partnership with Refugee Force. I am very, very excited today. It's the first time we're doing it live, and I'm super excited to announce not one, but two stellar guests with us today. Gaspar Rodríguez, he's the co-founder of Refugee Force. Hi, Gaspar. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Valentina. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Super, super excited to have you. And our second guest, Azmi Wahab. Azmi is a senior Salesforce admin, a certified admin. He was a part of the training by Refugee Force in the Netherlands, and he's with us today to share his expertise and his experience. Hi, Azmi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Okay, so we're going to start with some questions. We're here to talk about leveraging on refugee talent in your next hiring plan. Thank you so much to all of our guests. You can start writing your questions on the chat, and we'll be asking your questions as well to our guests. I think the first thing some of you may be asking yourselves, there's people watching over on Facebook Live as well, is this idea of the Salesforce economy, right? So Refugee Force is an incredible organization based in the Netherlands that is doing an amazing job training refugees on Salesforce so that they can get hired in their partner companies. Gaspar, can you tell us a little bit about the Salesforce economy? There has been so much talk about it. What is it exactly?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's always evolving, of course, as new research comes out and as Salesforce becomes the market leader in different parts of businesses. But really, the Salesforce economy kind of represents the new business revenue and jobs coming from the Salesforce ecosystem. So the Salesforce ecosystem is represented by employers, companies using Salesforce, recruiters, developers, people who are looking for jobs in Salesforce. So you take kind of all of that potential value creation happening, and that's what's called the Salesforce economy. And so far, I mean, the latest kind of projections that have come out is that they expect to create 4.2 million jobs from now until 2024. That's globally. And then the projection for Europe is that there will be about 500,000 jobs expected. And this is across different industries, finance, retail, e-commerce, media, manufacturing. It's quite broad. And like, just as, we've kind of tapped into this idea of the Salesforce ecosystem with our participants, we definitely see a lot more jobs opening up for administrators, consultants, developers, and Salesforce specialists as part of the Salesforce economy.
Right, that's incredible. 4 million jobs, that's incredible. Why in particular, when you started Refugee Force, why did you decide to utilize Salesforce as an entry point to offer jobs, to give jobs to refugees?
That's a good question, and to be honest, it's because it's not just me, right? I have two other co-founders, Nick and Mariel, and we took a look at kind of what was happening locally in our community in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, figuring out issues that we cared about. We took some volunteer time off and decided to start thinking about how to solve this problem of underemployed and unemployed refugees. And that kind of snowballed into an initiative, which turned into a nonprofit, which turned into where we are today. But really, it's because it is a difficult social issue that many refugees face. After arriving in the country, in their host country, many of them struggle to find work that is really matching their ambition, really matching what they did before in their home country, matching their motivation. Like, it's very, very difficult out there. And And we know that that's a problem, and that's a problem for them, of course, for their integration, for their livelihood, for their career path, but also it's a problem for the host country. There's a lot of opportunity out there on the table that is underutilized, you know, and you have people with computer science degrees and, you know, or data analysis, or, you know, 10 years of customer service experience in their back pocket, but they're working at a job that is kind of somewhere that's not utilizing those skills. So we looked at that, and then the other side we looked at Salesforce, because, you know, I have 10 years of experience in Salesforce. The other co-founders are also in the Salesforce ecosystem as users and partner managers. So we said, okay, well, let's connect these worlds together. Let's bring these two things, you know, together and see what we can make out of it. And the reality that we found out later, of course, after training people and after having people like Asmi come through and getting to know these amazing communities, is that they're really highly skilled, they're really highly motivated, and they of course have the same dreams as anyone else, right? They want to settle in their host country, they want to have a good job, they want to have colleagues, they want to find a home. So it became much less. How to say this? It became quite less challenging, I guess, to actually get it going. You know, because you know, when you approach a problem like this, maybe there's some stigma involved, or maybe you're not sure how it's going to go. But you know, it's gone really well so far, and we're very lucky to have you know, the Refugee Force community in the Netherlands so involved with us, and you know, recommending the program, as well as, you know, employers working with us on the Salesforce side.
Right. I want to hear all about your partners and the employers. But first, I'd like to talk to Asmi for a minute. Hi, Asmi. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So, Asmi, I'm very curious to know about your story. You arrived to the Netherlands from Malaysia, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When was that, and what was the journey like?
I came to the Netherlands in March 2016, back in Malaysia. Basically, I wasn't really working my dream job at that time, but I enjoy my previous career. And then I studied electrical engineering in wireless communication. I trained to be a technical guy, but I couldn't land any job at that time. The economy just recovered from recession back in the early 2000. I joined radio as a radio presenter and TV host in Singapore, and then I become a little bit political. I write a lot about politics in Malaysia. That made me end up here in the Netherlands as a refugee back in 2016. And yeah, so during that period, I did so many I can say odd jobs. I do a voiceover, freelance voiceover, document translates from my language to English and vice versa. I just want to keep going. I start to learn new skills. I studied data science here in the Netherlands. Then I found Refugee Force, and it's totally really changed my life, combining with all the skills that I have under my belt. And yeah, now I'm really working my dream job in IT and technology. I work as a data analyst before in one startup in Amsterdam, and now with Sonos. Yeah, love my job every single day.
Amazing. I want to get there in a minute, but just before that, tell me, what does the landscape look like for a newcomer in the Netherlands, right? Is it hard to find a job for people who are non-European or non-EU residents?
Basically, for the refugees who are coming to the Europe, they're coming from a very different background. I was lucky that my country was not in war, but the way how I came here in another different reason. I speak on my behalf, which that I don't find it, I don't consider it difficult. Many opinions say that I could not get a job, I could not get a good job in Netherlands because I'm not white, I'm yellow, because I don't carry Dutch names. At least in my case, that doesn't happen. I see a different reason. In many cases, language become the main obstacle. English is good, but my Dutch language still need a lot of improvement. So the formula that I follow and always believe is networking. So I always be active, get myself into the community, offer helps, do volunteer work, be part of the society. And then, yeah, I sent not 50, not hundreds applications, I think maybe thousands. I lost count. It's too many, but I never stop applying. So I encourage also my fellow refugee friends, do not stop after 50 application, because what happened in your 51 application. So
right, that's a great point. That's a great point. So you started volunteering, you were very actively involved in the community in different ways, right? And then started the training with Refugee Force. Tell
yes.
us a little bit about the training. What was it about? What did you take away, not only in terms of the knowledge, right? But what was your main takeaway?
Well, it was fun, learning new skills to be added under my belt. My first week mostly in the cloud, I would say. I didn't get any clue, but I met new friends. My class, I believe, the biggest in terms of numbers of participants, I guess, about 32 students. I still close with many of them, and then we motivate each other. That's very important, in the area where you are alone and you need some friends to motivate you. We do lots of Salesforce project together, and we study together for the exam. In fact, 3 days ago, I just celebrate my first year anniversary getting my admin certificate. So it was fun. The process that it goes right after I get my certificates, and it takes another 3 months. I landed a job with Sonos. So yeah, it's really fun. I'm glad to found Refugee Force. Definitely a jump start for me.
Great, great. So Sonos is one of the companies that have partnered with Refugee Force, right? And I want to move over to Gaspar for a minute. Tell us a little bit about the partners that are currently working with you. What kind of companies partner with Refugee Force, and what kind of companies do you consider ideal to work with?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we have partners across different industries. So as I mentioned, in the Salesforce ecosystem, there's a few different camps. So one camp is Salesforce customers, so the ones that are actually using Salesforce, like KLM, for example, or Vodafone, or Shell, like these bigger companies, as well as smaller companies. They use Salesforce to kind of manage their business. Sonos, another example of that. And then on the other side, we have partners who help those companies kind of implement Salesforce, design it, make sure it's meeting their needs. And, they have more developers and consultants on their team. And those will, do multiple projects throughout the year with multiple clients. And then we have another camp, which is more the App Exchange ISV partners, who are basically just building and developing applications that are then kind of licensed out to different clients. So out of those three, we usually have a mix. So we have some end customers, we like NewMotion, and then we have some partners like Accenture, like Absolutely, that are implementing partners of Salesforce. And then we have some ISVs like Summit, who have taken on some developers because they, ISVs are always looking for developers. So those are the types of companies that come with us. And the thing we look for them is are they going to invest in this person once they start? As Asmi mentioned, our program is basically a launching point, but it's impossible to teach someone Salesforce, in 8 weeks or even in a year. It takes quite a long time. It's a huge platform. So our partners, we look for them who are willing to invest, once they get hired. What kind of professional development do they have? What kind of training? Do they have any internal mentorship? Those are the things that are really important because it needs to be a good fit, or else it's not going to work out. So the other thing is a bit more like, in the business, I guess, but it's companies who are willing to build things in house that are typically not working with different consulting companies, but they're trying to kind of build their internal capacity, build their internal teams. I think those are where our participants can thrive quite well, because they're learning alongside seniors with a lot of experience. So those are very very good matches for our people.
Great, great. I mean, I'm going to ask you for kind of pitch right now, right? Why should companies hire refugees?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think it leads to kind of a bigger issue is why, because there is a shortage of Salesforce talent. You know, if you go to many companies who are working with Salesforce, they're desperately looking for people. You know, a lot of my former colleagues are coming from other countries. You know, they're, of course, they're not refugees, but they're migrants coming to the Netherlands or coming to other European countries just because they have the Salesforce talent and the Salesforce skills that don't exist here. You know, so there's definitely a shortage, and we know that it takes quite a while to get people trained up. So, you know, for us, we take part of that and we say, okay, we will train them up and get them a basic understanding, and then you can take on from there and develop them into, you know, a higher skilled Salesforce professional. The other thing is that our participants, like I mentioned, they're quite skilled, they're quite ready, they're quite motivated to start something new, and I think the three kind of biggest differentiators that they come with is the loyalty. Like, they're very loyal. They're going to invest in your company. They know that you've invested in them, and you know that you've given them their first Salesforce job, or even maybe it could be even their first job in their home country, and they're going to stick with you, and that's really nice to have. Because, you know, in the tech scene, sometimes people are always jumping around from one company to another. So loyalty is hard to find. The other is like commitment to learning. Like Azmi mentioned, he's a particularly motivated when it comes to learning new skills and getting involved in different things, as you can tell. But most of our people are super committed to learning something new. They want to figure things out. They want to do different training programs. You know, they want to be able to grow professionally. And then the other part is its potential. I mean, we really think that we measure a lot of our candidates during the recruitment process on potential. Will they become, you know, fast risers through the program, and then, you know, drive that motivation into your company? And we usually find that they do. You know, within the same year, they could have multiple certifications. They could move up a level from junior to meteor pretty quickly. So we do find that once they land a role, they're quite fast risers.
Right. You said something the other day that really caught my attention, right? It was don't hire refugees, hire better people, right?
Exactly. It's not just about refugees. It's about hiring the people that you want to see at your company, hiring multiple perspectives, hiring diversity, all those things. You know, just because they're refugees, it shouldn't be a reason to hire somebody. I think it's more about, are they the right person for your team? Are they going to grow? Are they going to learn? That's really, you know, what we talk with employers about. So it's super important.
Definitely. There's a phrase that I love, actually, which is, in order to innovate, what do you need? You need to ask different people different questions, right? Because if we're all thinking alike, nobody's thinking. So this idea of having people from different nationalities, different backgrounds, specifically people that had to reinvent themselves, is so powerful when it comes to innovating, when it comes to, you know, the processes and the talent that you have within the company. I want to go back to Azmi for a minute, because you have the other side, right? The overview from inside the company, right? Now you're working there, you're experiencing this. From your point of view, what is the added value of diversity within a working team, within an innovative tech company?
Well, if I may maybe a little bit add from what Gaspar noted just now, we talked about how the company can take advantage of the new tech solutions such as Salesforce. If we look at the statistic itself, the companies that use software and technologies see average increase in varieties of areas, including an average of 27% increase in sales revenue, 32% increase in lead conversion, 34% increase in customer satisfaction, 56% in faster deployment. Again, we come to high demand but lack of talent. So why can't the company take this opportunity to open the doors for us? I'm speaking on behalf of the fellow refugees. And I recently read also a report, they call it EU Labor Force Survey, conducted in 2016-2018. 1 out of 5 refugees aged from 15 to 64% in EU had tertiary level of education. That means, and in total, 60% of employed university level of refugees in EU mostly are overqualified for the job that they occupy, more than twice of level of native born, and also well above the levels of other migrants group. When we look at the reason why these things happen, the large discount of refugees' formal qualification relate to the fact that most of them have foreign qualification, which employers may have difficulties to evaluating, and they also often lack documentation of their degrees. But the good news is refugees like us, we are willing to retrain and relearn new skills. We always motivated to work extra hard, to start life again here in Europe with support with many NGOs like Refugee Force, for example. Many companies get to take this opportunity to include us to join their team with a very minimum effort. Only the next things need to do is the onboarding process into the organization working cultures.
Right, right. Now, I've seen your profile. The way you describe yourself on LinkedIn is fascinating. You turn, complex and boring data into storytelling. I loved it. It shows how much you love what you do. Tell us a little bit from your point of view, what is the value of Salesforce in your own career, in your own profession?
I believe, by the way, I love numbers. I love data. Like I said, I love to clean the data, and I was trained as well in data science, data analytics, and coming to Salesforce, as we know, the global goes towards digitalization, and that's where Salesforce coming in. And I really feel that I come to the right spot where I'm happy because I can practice both, which is data analytics and also the CRM platform under the same roof. I'm now learning also practicing machine learning with Salesforce Einstein. So it's really fun. For me, Salesforce is I can say it's a future. Those who are thinking about, I'm going to retrain myself, but in what area? I encourage you to look for Salesforce and look for Refugee Force, especially for those who are in Netherlands.
Right. That's very interesting. And and this question goes for you both. In terms of legalities of hiring refugees, right? Does a company require specific procedures, sponsorships of visas, or what is the actual possibility of any company in the Netherlands or in Europe to hire a refugee?
I can start with that if you want, Asmi.
Sure.
Well, okay, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that it really depends on the status, right? So if they've received their work permit or not. In most European countries, if they haven't received their asylum status, that means they cannot have paid work. So they're sitting, doing nothing, getting really bored, volunteering maybe if they have time, if they have the ability to do that. So during that time, it's very difficult to hire somebody. So in our program, we look for people who are about to receive their asylum status or have already received it and are either underemployed or just looking for a new career. So that is really the kind of turning point. But of course, it varies by countries, and we have the most experience in the Netherlands. There is one exception to that. So something we've worked with a partner who really wanted a candidate, and of course we wanted to do everything possible to get them hired, who didn't have their permit yet, is that in the Netherlands you can apply for a small sponsorship to sponsor that candidate for 6 months of work if they've received certain credentials. So if they're almost to their kind of permit, you can give them paid work for 6 months, but only 6 months out of the year. So that's kind of an exception, but other than that, it's quite straightforward for employers. It's just like hiring anybody else. Once they've received their permit, there's no sponsorship, there's no extra costs. It's very quite a level playing field in that sense.
Yeah, I think this is a very good topic to highlight here. Based on my experience when I apply for a job, one of the questions keep coming back to me is that am I allowed to work here in Europe or in Netherlands? Do they need to does the company need to issue any permit? So I look at it like many companies still don't understand that we are legal to work in the Netherlands. For example, for the first 5 years, you only can work in the country where hosting you. For example, in my case, in Netherlands, and then once you got permanent residence or EU permanent resident, then you are technically like others European as well, that you can go and work anywhere. But the bottom point here is that do not feel scared to hire refugees just because they are refugees, because we are legal to work in the countries where we're living right now.
Right. We talked, I mean, I think diversity was one of the core topics in 2020 and even moving towards 2021. There was a huge conversation about it, and lots of companies have started taking steps, particularly in the Western world, right? Do you feel there is the need, Gaspar, to have specific policies when it comes to hiring refugees or hiring people of diverse origin? Or do you feel it comes organically just as part of the normal hiring process?
Yeah, of course, it's a broader debate, right? And when you start getting talking about women, minorities, you start talking about, supervisory boards and the makeup of the boards, or executive teams, or quotas in government. It's definitely a broad topic. I definitely think that, once the pendulum shifts to one direction too far, it can't just go back to the middle without shifting to the other side, right? So some policies are needed to overcorrect and to get things a bit more balanced. So I definitely think that, policies that companies can have on where they find certain talent, what kind of recruitment they do, where they look, that's very important. At the end of the day, though, of course, it comes down to finding good people. Regardless of where they come from, I think it's very important for recruiters to kind of change their mindset, regardless of the company policy. Because if they find a good candidate, a good fit, a good skilled person, it doesn't really matter what the policy says, right? So I think for recruiters, it's more about kind of changing the way you hire, thinking differently about your hiring policies. It's not only about ticking certain boxes, but it's also about making new boxes, because you have to remain attractive to different types of people, and also making sure that the job descriptions are a bit more accessible, more engaging, being maybe more flexible on language. Salesforce, for example, is all in English. It's pretty rare that it's in other languages, and the community the lingua franca is English. So it's very, very important for that to kind of be a bit more flexible and hire for different kind of different criteria, if you will. And I think that diversity is one of those, but don't just hire for diversity. I think hire for people that are going to be a good person, team fit. And I think it's also important to see that employers are kind of showing that people who are from different backgrounds, different minorities, are visible on their website, on their marketing materials. You need to be attractive, because if you don't see yourself being part of that team, if you don't see yourself on their career page, anyone that looks like you're probably not going to apply. So I think definitely changing the way you communicate, the way you talk about it, the way that you hire, the way that you put together job descriptions. I think that will make a big difference in the day-to-day.
Right. So by the way, to all of our guests participating today, feel free to write your questions or comments in the chat. We'd love to share them with our guests. I do have some more questions, actually. So Gaspar, what do you think a company should do, whether they are in the Netherlands or in other European countries? What are the steps they should take if they want to hire refugees?
Yeah, so, well, if you're in the Salesforce ecosystem, you should talk to us. But if not, there's lots of other things you could do. I mean, I think, as I mentioned, changing your job descriptions, figuring out how to reach a broader audience, refugee communities, they're very in close contact in most countries. They have, WhatsApp groups, they have very close-knit ties. So figuring out, okay, how do you get your jobs to a broader audience, I think is definitely helpful. But also once you hire, I think it's important to have structured development time to get people, especially in the Salesforce ecosystem, make sure that they have a plan, that they are being supported in their professional development, that they are being supported by their team. Maybe you have mentors in your organization who come naturally, especially in the Salesforce world, because people are pretty nice in general. But there's probably team members who would love to mentor a junior participant. And of course, if it's a refugee, even better, but that's super important. And then the other part, as we say, is try to get them as much exposure in the beginning to different projects and different ways of working, as soon as possible. So that would help. Right.
Azmi, what do you think?
Well, that is not in my area to to comment, but I think how the company can look at the refugees can be a good start by not immediately closing the door of opportunities to us. And then how can we work with the permit? I think it's different in many different countries, and we can channel that to the right department or the right people that can answer that question.
Right. I was wondering if there's any channels where that refugees usually look for jobs. Are there any channels that are shared within different groups, within different communities, which companies can utilize?
I know a couple of groups in LinkedIn. For example, I was quite active joining activities with refugee talent hubs. I think for those in Netherlands, they were quite well known with this organization. And apart from that, again, like I said, if you active in LinkedIn, for example, you from time to time you will see lots of posting from many different people who are really encouraged and also willing to help the fellow refugees to find some job out there, regardless in Salesforce or anything. So just be active and curious looking to that.
Right. Gaspar, so you've started in the Netherlands. You're now running also another program in Germany. I was wondering what happens if a company in another country, not Germany and the Netherlands, wants to hire through Refugee Force and wants to become your partners. How do they contact you?
Yeah, definitely. So we're starting to scale the idea a bit. We want to create more of a movement for local communities in Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Nordics, etc., to kind of be able to launch their own Refugee Force program. It shouldn't depend on us, right? We want to be able to scale it that way, where it's a bit more organic, and each hub can have its local flavor. And if they want to do it in French, they do it in French. That doesn't have to just be one set standard for everybody. So we're definitely trying to do that. We're trying to scale up the hubs, and as you mentioned, I'm here in Berlin right now doing a training with 11 participants. We have London on our radar and Paris as well. And we just get in touch through our website, or you can email me, or on LinkedIn. That's where we're most active, to see how we can work together to launch a hub in a different country. In terms of employment, if we don't have physical people there, it's going to be really hard, because as Asmi said, it's very difficult to work in another country where you, as a refugee, where you haven't been granted your asylum status. So we want to look into remote working and see how we can make that happen. Of course, with Salesforce, it's very normal that you do that, and you don't have to be on site all the time. But it really depends on kind of the legal situation. So we're working on that bit. But if any other parts of Europe want to work with Refugee Force, just find us.
Amazing. That's amazing. We're also going to leave the contact for Refugee Force in the comments in the live video so that you can all check it out and go contact them. So I guess to finalize the interview, we always love to focus in our podcast on the lessons learned and the advice for other entrepreneurs, other business owners, or even HR managers in the case of today. So Asmi, what would be your advice for, job seekers in Europe, in the Netherlands, or anywhere who are refugees and are looking to get into the tech world?
I would say it takes two to tango, So maybe in our discussion today, we talk more towards the directions of the company to open the doors to our fellows refugees. But on my side, I would say this to my fellow friends: to compete with other talent out there, we cannot just wait and use our wild card as refugee status to be offered an opportunity. It takes more than that. Yeah, it both sides. Either the company or the refugees need to take their part. For us, the fellow refugees, we need to integrate, be social, be active in community, update LinkedIn profile, keep applying, be seen. That is the key. I received some message and asking some opinion about, oh, how can I apply this kind of job and that kind of job, but I don't have any experience yet. I mean, I apply with Sonos also with zero experience in Salesforce. For me, no working experience, no problem. We do projects. We can create lots of near life experience projects. So we do that. When we have that, we put it in our profile. So be as professional as possible. And we also need to remember, besides refugees, there are so many out there also in our position looking for a job.
Right.
So yeah, and then for those who really interested in knowing Salesforce, I highly recommend you to apply for Refugee Force. I believe they have the next upcoming intake somewhere in September. Gaspar, intakes in Amsterdam. Yeah. So yeah, visit their website refugeeforce.nl to know more. I really encourage you to do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Asmi. That was amazing. Gaspar, I also want to hear advice on the other side, right? From the side of employers, whether they're startup founders, whether they're smaller companies or big corporates. What would be your advice if they want to take the first steps to hire refugees?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things we work with our employers about is to hire for attitude, not just for skills. Hire for motivation, hire for ambition. Don't just hire for are they certified? Do they have this certain level of Dutch? Like, those things are not as important. You can always train skills. Asmi is learning as on the job. With Salesforce, it's a very dynamic platform. So if you have somebody with the right learning mindset, you can always train them. They'll want to learn. So don't just hire for skills, because it's really hard to change someone's mindset, of course, and to train them how to be motivated or how to be ambitious or how to be a learner. But me or anybody could teach them how to be a Salesforce developer or a Salesforce consultant. So that's number one. The other, I think, is to consider different soft skills that are important, especially in Salesforce. Technical skills are always in high demand, but soft skills are even more scarce, I think. Things like diplomacy, flexibility, empathy, those things are going to make for a better team. They're going to make for a better project, a better vibe, a better spirit, which will in turn make for a better company, and a happier customer. So those things I would definitely encourage employers to look for. And some of those things are naturally come with people from different backgrounds who have traveled, who have changed their lives to be here and have gone through difficult situations. So I think considering those skills alongside the technical part is very important for employers.
All right. Yeah, that's a very good point, Gaspar. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, both of you, for your time. I want to thank all of our participants on the live session today. It's been a very insightful session. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Oh, I'm seeing just as we finish, we have a question from Mustafa, who is saying, will you continue to give courses or training in Germany in the future?
Good question. Thanks, Mustafa. Good to see you on the chat. So we will continue in Germany in next year. So right now, this is kind of a first pilot program. We're figuring it out. We're seeing how it's going to go. We're bringing the right partners on board. There's definitely been a lot of demand. We've worked with a lot of employers so far. So far it's looking pretty good that we can continue next year. And the idea is to kind of have it similar to Amsterdam, where we can do 3 or 4 cohorts per year, hopefully.
Amazing, amazing. Looking forward to seeing these cohorts and looking forward to meeting more graduates from Refugee Force.